Real quickly before we begin, I want to thank this video's sponsor, CarMarshal.com. CarMarshal.com can save you lots of money on buying used or new vehicles, cars, trucks, school buses. If you want to save money, I'll have a link in the description down below. I know I'm going to...
We know the two former Memphis police officers who are accused of running drugs and stealing from people have been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Yeah, they could each face up to 10 years in jail, one of them even more time.
We will not tolerate police misconduct.
Tuesday afternoon inside the federal building downtown, U.S. Attorney Mike Donovan announcing a federal grand jury has indicted former MPD officers Kevin Coleman and Terrion Bryson.
Coleman used his position and status and equipment as law enforcement officer to escort that load, and Mr. Bryson entered the vehicle containing the narcotics and accompanied those being driven to
containing heroin. Police say the former officers agreed to escort a vehicle carrying heroin to a storage facility. This in exchange for cash from who they believed to be was a drug runner. Instead, it was an undercover officer. And before that, Coleman is accused of stealing from people while detaining
illegally obtaining and confiscating cash proceeds during traffic stops.
A bond hearing has not been set for the two former officers, but Director Rawlings says this kind of activity is unacceptable and will bring with it the full weight of the law.
When we heard that one of our officers were involved in alleged criminal activity, we took action, and often, sometimes that story is not shared.
Not only did they take quick action, but they took swift action. Again, let's remind ourselves this happened within the last month or so, and now these two former officers have been indicted. Let's go back to these charges. 10 years apiece is what victims that he actually pulled over while working on duty. Reporting live at Tillman, Scott Mattis, Fox 13 News.
Two cops arrested after they robbed drug dealers who were actually undercover cops. Two police officers are facing charges for transporting drugs and accepting money from drug dealers who were actually undercover officers. By Jack Burns, April 21, 2018. Memphis, Tennessee. Two police officers are facing a number of charges for using their badges to steal drugs and money from drug dealers after they were caught in an undercover operation by their fellow officers. Kevin Coleman and Terrion Bryson have been charged with possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture, deliver, and sell, along with criminal attempt felony and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. The Memphis Police Department's organized crime unit and their undercover officers had been targeted in February by Coleman and Bryson, so it apparently was not the first time the officers had stolen drugs and money from undercover officers. Thinking one undercover cop was a real drug dealer, Bryson offered to protect a shipment of heroin by providing a police escort for the drugs. The dirty cops said they would protect the drugs for a price of $9,000 but threatened physical harm to the undercover cop's family if it turned out to be a setup. Eventually, all parties involved agreed to protect the transport of 2.5 kilos of heroin for a price of $4,000 up front and a bonus of $5,000 when the drugs arrive safely at the intended location. The trap was set and the bait planted when undercover officers left $4,000 cash in a car for the officers to pick up and, following the transport of the drugs to a storage unit, the following $5,000 was given to Coleman and Bryson. Bryson has been an officer with MPD since August 2015, and Coleman started with the force in June 2012. The arrest of the two officers will likely be a welcomed early Christmas gift for any and all defense attorneys whose clients were arrested, jailed, or imprisoned by the dirty cops. Any and all testimony Coleman and Bryson have ever given in court must now be thrown out. Equally damaging are the untold millions of dollars that the city of Memphis will have to pay out to those who choose to sue the city and the police department, whether they were actually innocent or not. Fortunately, the Memphis Police Department can take credit for taking 2 criminals off the streets. Unfortunately, permanent damage has been done, and the trust Memphis residents have in their police force will be even further eroded. In a statement, MPD Director Mike Rawlings said, "We don't care what your profession is, and we don't care who you are. If you break the law and you're involved in illegal activity, we're going to stop you. This is a perfect example of great police work. We recognized that 2 of our own were possibly involved with criminal activity and we investigated." The Memphis PD can hardly claim to be above board in its dealings with the public. As the Free Thought reported in 2016, officers of the Memphis PD were implicated in the assassination of Martin Luther King, Jr., with one former officer confessing to his role in the killing of the country's most beloved civil rights leader. Last year, a retired Memphis PD officer, Timothy Bates, was arrested with an arsenal of weapons in his car. He claimed to be a willing participant in the CIA's MKUltra program and had a chip implanted in his head. He was at the White House complaining about not being paid and he said he wanted the chip removed from his head. This is also not the first time police officers have been found dealing drugs or stealing from drug dealers. A sheriff's deputy in Los Angeles was recently caught setting up dealers, stealing their heroin supply, and then selling it for profit. A police officer in New York was caught running a massive drug ring and using her badge to deter police from suspecting her involvement. And several officers in Las Vegas were caught working with sex traffickers and targeting their competition in exchange for money, drugs, and access to prostitutes.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I just wanted you to know that I am using this stuff under fair use. And also remember to like and subscribe this channel. Also too, keep in mind I do not make any money on YouTube. This is 5 hours work a day, you know, fighting for freedom. And you can donate with PayPal and Patreon. I just want you to think about this. If everybody gives to PayPal and Patreon, Patreon is every month. Actually, PayPal you can do every month. I have 12,000 subscribers. If everybody gives, I can quit my regular job and go full-time investigations on Charlotte County and possibly even more and beyond. So just keep that in mind. If everybody helps out, I can go full-time doing this. Thanks.